I've been playing chess for years, and the idea behind that was to improve this internal skill of being deep, going deep into the calculations, evaluating the position. So something like you have a fixed form within which you are in deepening in order to get the very gist of it. So that's what the chess analysis is all about. When I was doing chess programming, that was literally achieving exactly the same goal, but by programming, so that instead of you, this exact thing is executed by the computer, but the principle is fairly the same. Now, quite a different game is the game of Go, and the idea there, for those of you who know idea like what is that game all about, so you have a 19 by 19 board, the wooden one, and you have stones, black stones and white stones. So you can place the stones on the board one at a time, one at a turn, and let's say if your stone or group of stones has been surrounded, it's being captured. But the goal of the game is to gain territory. So the more territory you get by the end of the game, the better for you. That means that you're winning. Now, these two games are very interesting because they kind of do represent two most significant activities human being considers in his life. So let me elaborate on this a little bit. So, like chess, on the one hand, it's about going deep into the nature of things and into your own nature as well. And it's about fighting, but the true chess is not about fighting with your opponent, but fighting your own incapability of thinking ahead and analyzing the certain position, which is always kind of fixed form. The position is always fixed, and all the variations arising are determined by the position. So you're not really changing the position like when you are analyzing, because you're already starting from the starting position. So it's predefined. Chess is the predefined environment. So if there were no pieces on board and you would have just tried to put stuff, that would be a completely different story. That's something that is happening in Go. So chess is predefined, and it's all about figuring out the possible outcomes of this predefined structures, forms, positions, whatever fixed. So we're talking about the constant and the variables here. So we have a board position on the one hand, and we have the process of analysis on the other. So in this case, in case of chess, for instance, we have the board position being a fixed constant, while the analysis is going dynamically as it's a variable. So it's varying along the analysis is going on. Now, again, like the true player, like world class players, all they do and the reason why they win, it's like chess is all about you are playing versus your own self, and your opponent is playing versus your own self. Playing versus your own self is known as analyzing. So the one who better analyzes the game wins the game. So in order to analyze the game, you need to do two things. You need to calculate moves in a given position, and also you need to have a sort of static evaluation function, which chess engines also do. So, you need to properly evaluate the outcome of a certain forced variation or whatever. Like you're getting to the composition, you need to make sure whether that's good or not, whether you should go for that position or not. So, two persons playing chess, two humans playing chess, facing each other, everyone is living within his entire world, not really touching the opponent, and everyone like two engines, they're just analyzing the position, and the one who does it better wins the game. So chess is about fighting your own stupidity in terms of not being able to analyze deep enough, not being able to evaluate good enough. So this is fighting versus your own soul, which results in improving the skill of going deep into your own soul. Well, obviously, you are going deep into the chess position, but there is no much difference between going deep into the chess position, or exactly the same principle can be applied to revealing your own nature and analyzing it exactly the same way and going deeper into your own nature. So this can be applied to whatever skill that you have mastered in order to like make some work happening. Like programming might be as well. Doesn't matter what the skill is all about. Now, if we are looking at Go, then it's quite different because unlikely chess, Go is not about fighting, although lots of fights are occurring on the Go board. But ultimately, Go is about coexisting with your opponent. So it's way more social game as opposed to chess. And although it's really possible to like analyze the game of Go, the positions on the board, just like we do in chess, it's also possible you can do pretty much exactly the same analysis, and engines are doing this quite similarly to like how they do in chess and how humans do. But there is one significant difference, which is you don't have a predefined position on the Go board. Go board is also known as Go ban. So on a Go ban, you don't quite have the predefined position. Well, you had one in ancient Chinese Wei Qi, which has like four stones diagonally, but that's a bit different story. But the modern Go, you're starting with an empty board, and the idea is that a board position is no longer a constant because there are no fixed forms, and you can form whatever positions you like. So what becomes variable? So your skill becomes a constant here because your skill is literally since you don't quite need to calculate much in Go. Well, you do need when there's the capture raise and so on, but generally the reason why chess engines outplay human players is because chess engines are better at calculations. But the reason why Go engines are outplaying human players is because they have a better, deeper understanding of the entire game, and they're having a fantastically stronger grip on the entire position. So it's not about calculation. So just why it was so challenging to create Go AI for years because that's like a sort of an abstract task to achieve, which is strategic thinking, like how to get more territory. You if you go like the brute force, trying to calculate variations, you would run out of processing power just quite instantly. So it's because the number of the branching factor in Go is incomparably bigger as opposed to chess. So the only way to succeed there, and hence the neural network approach, is just to have this better strategic understanding which has nothing to do with particular calculation. They do calculations still, but calculations is not something that is designing the game. But this general strategic understanding, which neural networks do much better than humans do because of the nature of how neural networks are actually working. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, coming back to this constant and variable, so if we are considering this kind of skill, playing Go skill in terms of the level of the abstract strategic thinking, so that's sort of a fixed one. It can get improved, and obviously, definitely, for sure, the matter of improving this is really similar to how this works in chess. So in terms of gaming, this is quite similar. And like competitions, all of the sudden, like chess and Go, are really similar. But in terms from the perspective of those things I'm trying to talk here, it's quite different. So I just want to provide you an example to showcase what am I trying to say because it's a bit hard, but I still try. So let's say in chess, if you like, uh, if you have a certain level of analysis, so you can analyze like, well, it's not really on the cards for humans, but let's compare the chess engine. So let's say chess engine can analyze only to depth 4. So it would always lose to another chess engine which is capable of analyzing to depth 5 or 6 because it just can see deeper and can foresee those scenarios like losing pieces or whatever. It just sees better and winning just because it just has a better analysis. While in Go, the matter of how deep you can calculate the variation, it almost doesn't decide anything because you don't even need to go recursively. You can just count the liberties available in the stone group and to see whether it's possible to make two eyes in the group to make that a living group. which is the Go specific term, but never mind. So what I want to emphasize the most is that in Go, just the bare static evaluation is fairly enough to answer those questions that chess engines are answering via recursive search. So in Go, you don't quite need to go for that extensive recursive search. You just can use the static evaluation instead. And uh, like uh, that's one of the big differences between neural networks approach and like alpha beta search, because alpha beta search is the matter of in deepening into the search tree, while neural networks is just a matter of prediction. So they don't have such a thing as that. They can still get recursively analyzed using the Monte Carlo tree search, but that has nothing to do with the idea of how the neural network comes up with a move, because that's a sort of a very complicated but still kind of static evaluation as well. Just deep learning involved there, but ultimately that's just a static evaluation because you don't quite go recursively. So you go recursively just for, so you already, when you go recursive within the multi-colored research, it's just you're already like applying the existing neural network. But the neural network itself is not going like recursively deep. It just predicts the move in the current given position. So it might be compared to the sort of a static evaluation. Now, what is interesting here that um, again, in chess, if you have this like four depth engine and five depth engine, the engine that is searching deeper, it would win in all of the cases, no matter what the position. Well, if the position is more or less equal, like if we're starting from the starting position, it would always be winning because it just can't see deeper. But not so in Go. So in Go, you may or may not calculate better or worse, but this doesn't quite decide the outcome of the game, because exactly this kind of strategic understanding is actually what is deciding the game. And how can we apply this? So to give you an idea how this can be practically applied, I'll tell a little story on how I've been practicing with GNU Go, which is quite a rare Go playing program, which exists for a long time, and this is from the era before the neural networks come onto the stage in the game of Go, before that revolution occurred. Um, so I started like every other beginner, just losing every single game, not quite understanding much what I should do. I've been watching lots of videos, learning, studying the game, and then it's like trying to play with humans, like just losing every single game, not interesting. So I started to play with computer, because computer plays the same all the time, and you can look into this like into the mirror to see your own mistakes, like what you're doing wrong. And since it's like playing the same way every time, you can see your own issues, like what you're doing wrong, and you can fix that. You can improve over your own self, like going better. So through some time, I came up with a certain, let's call it playing strength, which in Go, again, is the certain level of the abstract thinking, the abstract strategy, like the level of the understanding of the game. So, how likely do you understand the game? And obviously, there is a big gap between the level of understanding, how likely, like what is your level to understand the game, and your practical playing strength. Because, again, with computer, it's much easier because you know like what computer do, what it doesn't, and you make use of it, so it's not for real. While with humans, exactly the same understanding of the game might not obviously result into in fact that you're winning the game. So recently, I started experimenting with GNU Go, and there are levels 0 to 10. But these levels, what is actually different within these levels, that they do improve the calculation strength, which is known as reading in Go, for GNU Go engine. But it doesn't affect the overall understanding of how GNU Go understands abstractly the game of Go. So no matter level 0, level 10, it understands exactly the same way. Just on level 10, it's a bit more precise when it comes to some forcing sequences, but it's not a big deal really. Well, it helps to play stronger, but essentially it's not really that different. So I started my experiments, and when I was trying to play from the empty board position, I realized that I losing just right in the opening. That the way the abstract thinking of the GNU Go is much better than mine. It was really unfortunate. So I started improving my own understanding, and once like I've reached the level that was good enough to beat GNU Go, like as good as GNU Go's level of understanding. I started winning. But I didn't start winning over GNU Go instantly. So there were some phases which I want to emphasize a bit, like, to talk about them a bit more. So the first phase, it was really hard for me to play from the empty board. So I dropped back to the ancient Weiqi, which is the Chinese origin of the game of Go. So they had four stones being set up in the corners in the initial position, and the rules were a little bit different. So I was trying to play versus GNU Go from that exact position, and the results were much better. So I could almost, I couldn't win first, but if I was playing on the empty board, I was losing about like 50 to 90 points, which is like a big gap. So when I was playing from this ancient Weiqi position, it was much easier to get a better position out of the opening. And the only thing I needed to do is just to maintain this slight advantage, because once I got that advantage, if I don't sleep this during the game, it's already like guarantees the win at the very end. So then I've realized that from this ancient Weiqi position, I just need to follow some guidelines I've learned from the ancient games. I was studying the games of Huan Longqi in particular, who has been like the master of playing that sort of old version of Go known as Weiqi in China. And once I started playing those, I started getting a significant advantage versus GNU Go, and I started winning like by 10 or 15 points, which is quite significant for me, assuming that I was losing like 50 to 90 points before. But when I tried to play from the empty board again, I was losing again. So I realized that there is a certain dependency between the giving board structure, giving board type of position that I can come up with. And if I manage to come up with that sort of board position, that means that I can win the game. So I started playing out of the opening. So there is the big opening theory in Go, just like in chess. But like going for that theory, just like in chess, if you don't know the basics, it doesn't work for you, because the first move that goes outside of the book, you don't know what to do with that move, how to handle it, you just end up losing. So instead, like the very first thing to consider is just like somewhat an equivalent of like in chess, you need to first develop the knights, then the bishops, then the queen, castling, then go for an attack. There is something similar in Go as well. So you need to occupy the territory in corners if possible. Then you try to build bases, like two stones placed on the sides, and then you try to connect everything together in the center. And meanwhile, trying to grab more territory than your opponent. So a sort of similar principles, I would say. So once I taught myself to generate not exactly the position I had from the ancient Weiqi, but a certain type of position, and playing the game this exactly the same way, I started getting a big advantage in the opening over the GNU Go. And finally, I managed to beat GNU Go just bearing on that advantage, because I just had like plus 10, 15 points in the opening, because I just understand it better than the program does. And then just maintaining this through the entire game, maybe losing a few points, but anyway, it was enough to win. And then I switched from level 0 to level 10. And the first couple of games I lost because it's just more precise in calculations. But when I just put a bit more emphasis on getting this exact type of position, because when it calculates best, it just prevents me from getting that desired type of position. I need to put a bit more effort to get that type of position. But when I just it's hard to say. It's hard to do on the later stages of the game, but in the very early stage of the game, it's quite easy to do. So I just put more time and effort to think about my moves in the opening. So once I get an advantage in the opening, I no longer slip it versus this program, and I still win. So today I managed to win GNU Go level 10, which was really satisfying. And this gave me an idea like what we can learn from this game, because again, quite interestingly, that my understanding of like my practical strength, as practice shows, is about equal as the GNU Go's practical strength. So our practical strength is about equal. But the difference, the only thing that makes us different, the only thing why I'm actually winning and he's losing is because I know how to get a better position out of the opening and he doesn't. And even if he's using the opening book still, we're running out of the opening book and then I just understand the certain type of position which he doesn't. So those engines that do have neural networks, they do understand this as well and doing this much better than human players do. Hence, no one can beat Go play neural networks nowadays. But that's a different story. So just this ability to apply my skill, which is exactly the same as GNU Go skill, maybe even worse, because sometimes I take back because he calculates actually better than I do. So sometimes if I blunder something, he take back. But anyway, so he's even a bit stronger, like practically than I. But because I can come up with the desired positions in the opening, he can do absolutely nothing to this. So if we just try to make a sort of analogy between this method of playing the game of Go and life, then there is such an interesting thing arising from this. So you just imagine the following scenario. So let's say, well, this works in different specialties. You don't obviously need to be a programmer, but I would say I tried a lot of different specialties and professions, but with the programming, it works. It shows this principle the best ever it can, probably. So let's say you have a certain skill. So you can code something. You can write a sort of a program. Like no matter what the niche is, it might be the web development, like some desktop programming, whatever. Doesn't matter really. So, but you have a certain level. Like you can level it. You can code it at a certain level. And now you just consider two scenarios. So like I can just tell you my own story. So, like, I once made a chess program that was playing Chinese chess Gen G, and made a tutorial series on it on YouTube on my chess programming channel. And since the very beginning of that, um, it earned maybe $20 for a couple of years. So it's almost nothing. But once I've managed to sell this program for $100, and I could sell it even probably for 200 or even 300 if I was thinking about money a bit more, to someone, a guy who has been running this Genji site and they needed a bot, which won't be as strong as like the real engine, so somewhat the human player can bid. And they really love my engine, and they just bought this engine from me, just sell this engine. So, like, exactly the same skill, exactly the same engine, but if it gets just distributed on YouTube in a form of a tutorial, the income is miserable as opposed to if I'm capable of selling this to someone who really needs it, right? And even more interesting that the skill needed to write the Xianqi engine and the normal chess engine is literally the same skill. But no one is interested in buying such a chess program of such a level because so many of those exist. So again, you have exactly the same skills, so you need exactly the same amount of time and effort to put in order to write that sort of engine. But if this is a regular chess, no one is interested in any. You don't quite sell it. So YouTube is the only opportunity because the only value to sell is like the didactic value. So hopefully that makes sense. But with Chenchi it has another value as well. So this is the analogy with a fixed skill, but if you manage to get a certain type of position out of the opening, like this happens in the game of Go, in this case, the value of the job that has been done might be significantly different. So in one case it might be miserable, in another case it might be really significant. So like exactly the same thing. So if I manage to write to make to come up with a good opening out of the opening in the game of Go, which is like what is the most essential in the opening if you're playing Go? That's the matter of coexisting with your opponent. It's not about fighting. Fighting occurs later in the middle game, in the end game. But in the opening, Well, those who try to find the opening, they lose in the games mostly because you don't have like it's like not developing pieces in chess and just developing your queen and trying to checkmate with only your queen. It doesn't work that way. You need at least two pieces to checkmate, right? So the opening phase in the game of Go is all about deciding. Okay, so this is going to be my piece of territory. This is going to be your piece of territory. This is mine. This is yours. This is mine. This is yours. This is mine. So that's about like a big pie, and you want to cut this pie into even pieces so that take something to you, take something to me. And again, if you start with dividing this pie for around even parts, then if you're stronger at tactics, like just a stronger practical play, you can grab some more from opponent's piece. But that's more likely to be applied to games human versus human. That's why even though I can be GNU Go, I really play badly versus human players. But with computer, you can just at the very beginning of the game, you could just grab more territory. Like it's not really grabbing more territory, but just drafting more frameworks that potentially can turn into territory later. And you then just maintain and protect those frameworks, and that's already good enough to win the game. That's it. But your skill didn't change in this case. So like you're not strong, but because of this proper because of the proper ability, because of an ability to properly sell your skill by saying sell. In this case, it means like play the opening properly. That's like selling the skill. So just make this opening. It forms the fixed scenario, and then within that scenario you can like your skill will be fairly enough. But if you get a worse position, then you would obviously lose because your skill would not be that enough to turn the game from absolutely lost game to trying to win. So you can compare this and you can think of this as following. So for instance, like if you're a programmer, you can be making YouTube tutorials, which is the most miserably paid. You can, well, it depends if you're Travis Media or someone, a celebrity programming blogger. In that case, this principle might not work for you. But like for the vast majority, like, for guys like me, like almost do nothing from like programming tutorials. Even talking videos might sometimes get more views than the programming ones, and it's really easy to make a talking video as opposed to the programming video because you need to prepare to the programming video, you need to write the code, you make a tutorial, it takes time, effort, and no one watches that after. So why would they do that really? So that's the question, right? Um, and talking video is exactly the same. Also, no one is interested. No one is watching. But just talking it up. I need to prepare for this. And just talk what I feel, what I think about. Like it's much easier to simpler and faster to produce this. And the value is around equal between these two, in my personal opinion, really. But anyway, so you can think of this like if you're a programmer, you can do like YouTube videos, which results in miserable income. You can do some freelancing, which results in much bigger income. You can make some product and then try to sell it. Depending on your selling skills, it also might vary a lot. You can work for a company, right? Uh, you can work in a team. You can do outsource if you're not like, if you're like in countries like I am, kind of in Ukraine, for instance. People do a lot of outsource here, and so on. So outsource is literally like working like for twice as low a price for your work, but you don't really need to care about finding work. That's the idea. So depending on this scenario you're about to be considering, it just can be compared to like the different opening strategies in Go. So like it's arguable which one is better because for someone it's better to go freelance and for another it's better to join the company, etc. So it's really individual. So that's the like personal. That's why there is no such a thing as the best opening in Go as opposed to chess. So for instance, in chess, like if you're playing Relay Pass for whites, it's just really good, right? So it's undoubtedly good. You will most likely win if you do everything properly. That's why they more and more play in D4 these days instead of E4. The first move gives more flexibility. But in Go, there are many really good openings. It's really more about like which one matches your personality. So you need to spend time and effort to reveal which one suits you the most. So when we are having this kind of positions that we're making for ourselves to kind of apply the skills, the position from where we start, it matters a lot, and it's really kind of important in terms of like the better position you have. Exactly the same skill, which might not be really remarkable, but just a casual one, but it still may work to benefit you. So this is very interesting sort of a like feature of the game of Go, which is known as coexisting, and this matter of coexisting happens in the opening, and this is what having a strong analogy with the real life and the matter of applying your skills depending on circumstances. So creating the certain circumstances under which you can apply your skills more effectively. Oh, I know I need to somehow finish this part. So the reason why I've been thinking about this recently is because, when I'm analyzing where I'm currently at, what am I doing, and why and how, it just turns out that for some unknown reason, obviously, my major goal is more likely, which can be found in chess, like trying to improve my skill. And but unfortunately, when I'm making videos on how I'm trying to improve my skill, which in my case is mostly about simplification and minimalism, which no one really cares about. No one is interested in minimalist and simplistic programs. They want like big, feature rich, something I hate the most. Don't see any sense in it because you can't improve the skill if you're going for that. It's just I don't really even want to start arguing about this. Anyway, so when I do something to improve my skills, something that really matters for me, something I'm really truly interested in, it results in like 100 views and no more forever. And just I spent like hours, months to make a tutorial, and then it's just no one is watching this. So like, why would I do this? It doesn't make sense, right? Because in order to work this out, to walk through this, to live through this, I don't quite need to make a tutorial. I can just make this program, and that's enough. So that's it. So it's really inefficient to go that way. On the other hand, if if I'm making some videos about topics someone can be interested in, the way someone can be interested, I feel very disgusting because it just hurts me a lot, and I don't see any sense in that as well. It's just being sick and tired of the like web scraping. Like, everyone loves web scraping, but despite everyone loves web scraping, still no one is watching web scraping videos. Like 500, 300s, 1,000, 2,000s, that's it. But the time and effort spent is again like, incomparably bigger as opposed to the outcome of this. So, on the other hand, I've realized that the skill that I have, that many of you guys admire for some unknown reason, well, you better judge than I do because you see this from the outside. But no matter what skill I have, so that's a sort of a fixed skill. Although I'm developing this from within, but yeah, so you don't see it, you just see it like I'm having sort of a skill. But then, for some unknown reason, when I'm trying to apply this skill, I'm considering the worst possible scenario in terms of opening if we get back to this analogy and Go. So I'm not playing Go good, but instead of trying to make a good opening to, if not win the game, at least to survive, I instead just ignore completely the opening and trying to do some of my own stuff and then get completely surrounded and losing all the time. So losing like can't sell it, can't make income of it like in any way, in any way. So even in terms of use. Again, for me, I tried freelancing. I didn't try working for companies because I would rather die than work for a company that just exact roofing completely. And that's pretty much all I tried. But like freelancing gets a lot of money. Again, like I was working like $50 per hour for web scraping projects for about a year straight ahead. But I'm so sick and tired of that. I no longer want that. Although sometimes, like quite often, I need money and I just not starving maybe, but yes, really finding myself in a difficult financial situation. But even that, like the matter of this being disgusting internally from starting freelancing again, it just is so annoying. I don't really want like a week ago or so. I had a request from someone, a kind guy, was asking me to sell him my web scraping code, getting property listings from the Polish website. And I said, like, I'm no longer doing web scraping. Please don't ask me for this. And he said a phrase which really hooked me up. He said, like, I told him, like, my code is not working now because it's outdated. Web scraping gets outdated in a week because they change everything on the website. That's pretty much all about it. And he said, okay, I will buy the code that doesn't work. How much? And I'm like, oh, that was cool. That blew me up really. So I actually decided to spend time to recover the scraper so that I at least scrape something, at least grab something. And I say, like, I'm selling you this for $100, but actually it costs 250. And 250 was the initial price that I've charged the original client I've made this scraper for initially. But since I had some bases, but I've written like almost the entire scraper because like fixing scraper in many cases just like rewriting the scraper from scratch in most cases. But I understood that like no one would pay me $250 for this like again because yeah. So I said, okay, you buy it for 100. So if you give me 100, I would be happy enough. And then it just in this parenthesis, I said like actually cost 250, but okay, I'm selling you this for 100. And a few moments later, I'm looking at my PayPal and I have $250 there, and I'm like, oh my god, how is that possible? So I was forced to walk a bit more. Like I wasn't even forced. He just told me like, here is your money. I'm completely satisfied with the code. I would like to improve something to make something, but if you don't want to, like, this is enough. The deal's over. So I got the code, you got the money. That's it. And I wasn't really forced to do anything, but since he was kind, like I was kind to like when I was doing this code, when I was fixing the code, I had no idea whether he pays or not because like 90% of cases when someone is asking me to buy my web scraping code, I'm just fixing code, sending the codes, and not getting paid. Most cases, so that's the reason why I hate it so much, and usually not doing this. But I thought like, okay, I don't care. Like, if I don't get paid, okay, I just fixed this for free. So I just did it and just sent it and wasn't really hoping to even get those $100. But he paid 250. And it really blew me up, so I decided, oh, okay, so he's a really kind guy, so yeah, just probably spent a couple more hours to make like there were a couple of requests that he had, like it wasn't paid. He just said like I would like this, I would like that. It wasn't like it was deal was over already. So I took the money. I no longer needed to do that because I didn't promise to do that. So I could just take the money and just go away. But since he was such a kind guy, I just decided, well, I can't do that. So I just spent another couple of hours like trying to make the requisites that he had, and I made it, and he was quite happy. Was well, I don't know. You can't be happy with web scraping code because you buy it for big money and then it just breaks. I told him it would break, definitely, absolutely, essentially, would break like in a week or two. But he says, yeah, it's okay. Well, he can load this to himself. That's cool, good for him. But yeah. So and I spent another couple of hours like, repairing like what I could, try to make it like much better than it was, and significantly increasing the value of the scrape data because I was initially using HTML selectors to grab the data from the directly from the website, but then I just it turned out that there was a huge JSON data chunk on the type of web page, so I just passed that instead and stored so that he could consider only those features he was interested in early. So that was worth those $250 for sure. And if before that I felt like I got a bit more money that I should have, after this I felt like okay, so this amount of work definitely costs this money. But if you ask me to do this and he would tell me I will pay you $250 for this work, I will say no, I'm not going to be doing this. I hate this. I hate web scraping. Try not to swear here. So I just hate web scraping, right? And quite interestingly, even though this is the like fairy tale scenario which doesn't have to occur in the real world. But even these couple of hours I've spent to repair the scraper, I was coding like this. I was trying to finish this as soon as I can. I was so annoyed. I didn't like it. I hated this. So I kind of honestly made those $250 in the matter of 40 minutes, right? Assuming that I spent some more time earlier when I was initially writing the script, so I knew what to do, right? Anyway, 40 minutes, $250. But I was so annoyed. What I felt within inside was I was ready to like hit my laptop with a fist, like crash it, like throw it to the window. Although I could buy a new one for those $250, which might cost exactly the same money, yeah. Like, but it was so annoying, so disgusting, and that's what I'm talking about. So, what is the biggest problem for me? Then as opposed to doing like programming tutorials or like videos, YouTube videos that no one is watching, is no one is interested in. When I did like a good opening for me, so just showcasing the real world application of this principle I've been talking about. So I took the skill that I had, and instead of selling this like for a couple of dollars, I've sold this for $250 within 40 minutes. Good opening. So my skill worked there, and I won the game. I got the money. But the price, the internal price I paid for that was incomparably high. It was incredibly high because I was like a few days, I was just so upset. I didn't want to do anything. Like I had the money, but I didn't want to leave, I swear, because it was so, I can't even explain this. And this is the core issue. So, like I said, I've been doing some videos on Qigong recently. So, like, unlike the martial arts, Qigong is not answering questions, it's asking questions rather. So, I would like to end this video with asking the question, not answering the question. And my question is, which I'm asking to myself every single day, and well, it doesn't make sense to ask this question to anyone else because it's really personal. The way it works for you would not work for me, and vice versa. So the question I'm asking to myself, like, yes, I have the skill. Yes, I can sell it like the best way I can, and this would work, but I feel so disgusting after. I feel so ugly. I feel so. I just don't want to leave after this. I don't want to do anything after. Just so annoying. And I just imagine what those people feel who work in the companies and doing this exact thing every single day. This is so disgusting. I would never ever be capable of doing that. Like, I had a job at chess.com, which is the world's biggest company. Just now is suing Hans Niemann and Magnus Carlsen. Quite interesting because of this recent scandal. Um, but yeah, they were paying me $50 per hour, and I didn't even need to produce much of a result. They just paid me for research work. So I was doing some research work for them. Spend money, and my outcome, like my deliverable was just an email where I said like I did this, and this, and this is what I've realized so far. So this is possible. This is not. This is possible, but there are many buts there. So I was paid $50 per hour for that research work because they saw my YouTube channel, chess programming. That was good enough for them to feel that to understand I'm confident enough for to making this research and was the right person. But they said like you try to show your attitude, you try to show that you're interested in to go on with this job. And I was saying like, you know what, guys, $50 per hour is really good, but sorry, just busy with my personal stuff, which I wouldn't get any single dollar for. But that's more interesting for me to do. And eventually we just dropped that. We still have a contract, yeah. Like I've done the ANZA, all the casual stuff which goes along with this. But yeah, I'm no longer actually working for them. And when it comes to like they ask me more, I would 99.9% would reject. The only 0.1% for me to agree if I would have nothing to eat in that particular situation when they ask me to do something, and it would be like the matter of spending like an hour to achieve that to get another $50. Maybe that's the only, but even in that case, probably not, because you just do it once and then you just get addicted. They want you to do this more again. It's so annoying. I don't want this anymore. So that's the question, guys. Is it worth it? And how much do you actually pay for the matter of like nicely selling your tiny skill, coming up with a good opening? But what's the internal cost? That's the question. That's the question I'm asking myself every single day. That's it. See you later, and cheers.